to not give any reactions. And that's exactly where this gets really interesting and frustrating. And I discovered something that no one else has talked about, and I don't blame them, because what happened to me was very specific. So what happened is I first saw it on Instagram and I said, wow, this guy's not giving him anything. And then when I was going to do this analysis, I went on YouTube and I searched for the whole footage, and I came across the version on ABC News. And as I was watching it, I saw something completely different. Watch this.
Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson.
Please tell me you noticed the difference. In this version, when the judge said that Tyler intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because of his belief or perception of Charlie Kirk's political expression, as he's saying because of Charlie Kirk's political expression, we see Tyler nod downwards, the same way he does when he acknowledges things. And in that moment, I'm looking at that going, wait a second, like this whole time he was stoic, and this one moment where in this slip up where he's going, yep, that's why I did it.
Kirk's political expression.
But there was a little voice in my head that was like, wait a second, I saw this on Instagram earlier and he never acknowledged anything. I was looking specifically for that, so there's no way I would have missed that. So I took both clips. I took the ABC News one that I was watching that has tons of views online, and then I compared it directly to another one that I found that was from a news source in Salt Lake City, and I synced up the audio to where the judge is saying the same thing. And I looked at Tyler, and it wasn't the same thing. In the local one, in the Salt Lake City one, all the charges are read, he doesn't react, and then when the judge says that concludes the charges or whatever, when he's done, when he's concluded, that's when we see the acknowledgement like this. So Tyler goes, good, okay, we're done, I get it, acknowledge. So I'm gonna play them side by side. I'm gonna show you this clip, and on the right, the little box, that's ABC News, and you'll even hear that the audio is synced. And on the left is the one from the news station from Salt Lake City. And look at when that nod hits. On ABC, it's an acknowledgement to the charge. On the Salt Lake City one, it's an acknowledgement to we've concluded.
Because of Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. That concludes reading the information. Mr. Robinson.
To clarify, in the beginning, they were both synced, and it seemed like the responses that he was giving were timed well with what was being said. And then at this moment, I realized that the clips were out of sync. So I'm watching one of them, and I'm watching him not react throughout and only react when it's done to acknowledge, okay, we're done. And that one, by the way, is on a network called KUTV2 News that's in Salt Lake City. But then on ABC News, one of the biggest news platforms of the country, I'm seeing this report that's been seen by tons of people out there. And when he's being told, when the judge is saying the motive for having done this, which is political expression, we're seeing an acknowledgement. And listen, you don't need to be a body language analyst to see that acknowledgement, right? The judge is saying that Tyler specifically chose Charlie Kirk because of his political beliefs. You're seeing the guy in that moment acknowledge it like this, the way he's acknowledged other things before. Seriously, what are we doing here? The year is 2025. Why does this footage look like it was filmed on a potato from the 17th century? Everything is choppy, everything is laggy. So what I did is I looked at both clips and tried to listen and look at the judge to see which one is more synced with his audio. And in both cases, it was, again, super laggy, pixelated, choppy, but it does seem like the one on KUTV makes a little more sense with the way that the judge is moving when he's speaking and the way like he puts the papers down. It looks like it makes a little bit more sense and lines up with him finishing and Tyler just acknowledging that that concludes the charges. But I have no way of knowing that for sure. I don't know where that lag came from. And even if the judge seems synced, how do I know for sure that the feed that we're getting from Tyler is at the right time? Who's to say which of the two got it right? When you have two news outlets playing the same audio, the same footage, but the guy who's on trial in one of the most high-profile cases right now in all of America, and we can't see what the guy's reaction is. Why are we even filming this? All right, thanks for listening to my rant. I hope some of you connect with why this frustrates me as much as it does, especially considering what I do for a living. But overall, we have someone where we're getting these little bits in the beginning of acknowledgement versus more negative or throwaway feelings. Then we're having someone who's pretty non-reactive for a long stretch while the charges are being read. We're not seeing any emotional spikes in places where we would expect them. Surprise, fear, a little bit of anger maybe, some sadness. These are all universal, so we would see little signs of them. We're not seeing those, which indicates to me that he's making a very conscious effort to not let anything slide, because even if you weren't much of an emotional person, we would still see slight reactions to stuff. So it takes a lot of conscious effort to not give anything, so I think that's what's happening. But now let's move on to this text exchange between him and his roommate, who's also a romantic interest. And a lot of people are talking about this text exchange and some weird elements to it. So let's go through them, and I'll kind of highlight a couple of things that's out there people are talking about that I agree with, and then some other things that I noticed that are very bizarre to me from a behavioral standpoint about these texts. Okay, so the roommate's name is reportedly Lance Twiggs, and these are their texts. And on some news sources, it's presented like actual texts. And then on other sources, it's almost like it's retranscribed into a conversation. And there are signs there that there have been some modifications, which we'll talk about in a second. But let's kind of read through this to get a bit of a vibe as to what's going on. So it starts with Tyler saying, "Drop what you are doing, look under my keyboard." And then there's a note there that says that the roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and I'm going to take it." So there was a note that declared this, and the roommate comes back with what? With all these question marks. "You're joking, right?" More question marks. Then Tyler responds with a bunch of details about where he is, and he's got to go get his rifle. And he says, "To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." In a moment, we'll come back to some of the wording here that's interesting. But I really want to talk about something that immediately for me was a question mark, and it's the fact that he's saying, "I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age." So first of all, if he wrote a letter that we saw above that he left for the roommate to reveal his plan, and if at this point he wasn't caught yet, because we know that at this point when they're texting, they weren't onto him yet, he hadn't confessed yet, why is he confessing? If he had hoped to hold on to this secret, why isn't he? What is forcing him to let the roommate in on it at this point? We're not getting a motive for letting him in on it. Then we have the roommate saying, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And we know that there was a note under the keyboard that said, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk." Now on the news, Charlie Kirk, has been shot. And the roommate is asking, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" But this is fine. This can be just like, they're in denial, they're uncertain, whatever, I'll let that go. And he goes, I'm sorry. And then the first question the roommate asks is, "I thought they caught the person." There's no, "Oh my God, are you okay? Holy shit, where are you? What's going on?" There's no panic. For somebody who started with that many question marks, right? So this is someone who's explosive, expressive. Now they're just asking these simple questions that are even about to get reduced to one-word questions. It's kind of inconsistent. Why isn't that panic continuing? Then Tyler responds with a mini novel with details about what his plan was and what he was intending on doing. And this includes sentences like "my drop point," and there's one "vehicle lingering." So we're getting this kind of thing. So then we have this like one word "why," and then Tyler goes, "Why did I do it?" And the roommate goes, "Yeah." So again, we've reduced it to these one word questions now, and it's almost like instead of going like, "Oh my God, why did you do this? What's going on through your head?" Like more panic, more questions, more. It's just why. And Tyler is the one who has to expand on that. Why did I do it? Yeah. So you know what? Let me give you my theory now. Let's operate under the assumption that they have the right guy. I know that there are a lot of theories out there, but let's just operate under the assumption that Tyler is in fact the person who did this. And let's operate under the assumption that these text exchanges are legit. And in a moment, we'll talk about some other theories there, but let's for now just assume that they are, right? If all those things are true, my theory is that this entire text exchange is a piece of fabricated theater to communicate to an onlooker that the roommate did not know about this plan. That's why we're getting these insane amount of details. That's why we're getting styles of communication that aren't that standard. Like first we have panic, then it's like, why? And it's almost like Tyler is realizing that the roommate forgot their line. Like, no, you were supposed to say, why did I do that? So he improvises and goes, why did I do it? And the roommate goes, yeah. And then he responds with another paragraph of motive and more details about exactly where he is and what's going on. And you would expect him to be in a panic and just, he's probably shaking, he's nervous. You would expect short replies saying, trying to get out of here, see you soon, don't worry, everything's fine. You would expect to see these brief things, but we're getting mountains of explanations here. Then again, the roommate asks a short question, how long have you been planning this? That's the next line in this little theater. And then Tyler again goes into a flood of detail. But let's look at some of these details. So there is a squad car parked right by it, not a police car, a squad car. Then again, the use of the word vehicle. As I got to my vehicle, I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle, so old man. Then again, all these very specific details of exactly what's going on, and Grandpa's worried about the gun and what he's doing with the gun, all these details. And then the line for me that I just can't ignore, which is, since Trump got into office, my dad, and my dad is in brackets, has been pretty diehard MAGA. So again, we'll talk about all this in just a second. And then at the end, we have this exchange, you are all I worry about, love, to which the roommate responds, I'm much more worried about you. So this is the first time we're actually seeing worry in this one line, no exclamation points, no punctuation for someone who started with a ton of punctuation. And then Tyler says, don't talk to the media, don't take interviews, and if the police come, just lawyer up. And I guess this kind of relates back to what I was questioning earlier. I guess he's thinking if they find the rifle and they trace it back to him, maybe they're gonna go talk to the roommate, but all that would take so much time. Like, does he not understand that he'll probably get to the roommate before they do? If he's leaving now, he'll probably be able to get the roommate before they do, and they'll be able to have these conversations, but he's still sending all this by text. He's like, I was hoping to keep this till I die of old age, but then why did you spill the beans right now? You don't have any reason to believe that they're onto you. They interviewed the wrong guys. Nobody's onto you. And by his own admission, it looks like he's about to walk away from this whole thing. So already that to me was a little unclear. And then there's literal evidence that the text exchange has been in some way modified, because first of all, there's ellipses all over the place, that little ... and that's fine. Maybe they removed certain things because it's evidence or it's part of the investigation. That's okay. But then the part where he talks about his dad, my dad is in those brackets that we use to specify something in journalism usually. So if the person said like he, and then, we're referencing this in an article, we replace the he with whoever that he is in these types of brackets. So we know that there's been some kind of modification. And it would be nice to know how much of this was changed. How much of the original are we seeing? How much was left out in those points? Because that might help bridge certain gaps. Was the roommate freaking out more, asking more questions that I would expect to see? So I don't know what's missing. But the bigger point about this line, ever since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA, is that he's calling this person my love. He's texting him a confession. They live together. They're obviously very close. These are conversations that they've had. The roommate would know that the dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. This is something Tyler would have complained about. It just seems so like these are the things that we need to say so people won't know that this was premeditated and that you knew about this before it happened. And then the last thing about this is something that there's a lot of talk about online, and I didn't initially notice all of these, but I definitely noticed some of these. I noticed that he used the word my old man and vehicle to talk about his car. But some other people online noticed some other odd terms like drop point or till I died of old age. And let me tell you what I think this is. I think it once again contributes to this whole two-person text theater for us. So think about how in a movie sometimes you see a character call someone and we're only seeing this one person. And when the phone picks up, they go, hey, John, no, whatever. Like they say what it is, or hey, mom, no. And that's not for that conversation. Because usually when we call a friend, we go, hey, man, what's going on? Like we know who it is. They know who we are. This is for us, the viewers, to understand context. And this conversation is very similar to that. There are these things that doesn't make sense that he would be saying to Lance, but are there for us as outsiders to go, oh, okay, this is the fiction. This is the theater that we're supposed to accept. I also believe, based on these texts, if Tyler in fact sent these texts, that he's a bit of an outcast, a bit of a loner. And, it's been reported that he spent enormous time online, so probably a little antisocial. And I don't think he's a trendsetter. I think he's a bit of a follower. And I don't think he knows what cool is. So he picks up these terms, like a lot of these terms, it's like he watched some war movie or police movie and picked up like squad car and vehicle and drop point, and he's using that in his language because he thinks that's what cool is. And then he watched some old movie where someone said, "My old man, I know until I die of old age," and he worked that into his little script here, into his little theater. Because if we don't look at it through that lens, this exchange between a guy who's on the run and his roommate, who's also his romantic partner, doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that this is the conversation that they would have. Sorry, there's a lot of scattered thoughts, but another thing that's missing from these texts is any form of celebration, right? This person probably had a lot of conversations with their roommate about how much they hate Charlie Kirk and how they wish somebody would do something about it. And if he's the one who did this, he's probably quite proud of himself for having finally done it. You would expect the text to be like, "Oh my God, I finally did it," or "I did it for us," or some kind of celebration of this big thing that he did for them. We're not seeing any of that. And another thing that doesn't make sense, this person is suspected of having shot and killed a public figure in broad daylight at a crowded event with security and having gotten away with it. By the way, one shot. So this person has some kind of tactical capacity, some kind of planning skill, and you're telling me that that person is going to send paragraphs of details like this over text to their roommate? Like, just the level of meticulousness doesn't match. So look, there are a lot of people out there who believe that this entire text exchange is fake. It's fabricated. I don't know at which stage, I don't know by who, but it's a popular theory out there. And if you believe that, of course, everyone's entitled to believe whatever they want. Personally, I tend to stick to not jumping to massive conclusions, but just being cautious when things are weird. And to me, this exchange seems very unlikely for a 22-year-old guy on the run with his roommate and romantic partner. Now, does that mean that the whole thing is fake and completely fabricated? Does it mean that parts of it are fake and edited for whatever reason? Does it mean that it's not fake, but the intention of it is different than what we think? Like Tyler had some kind of intention for these texts? I can't tell you with certainty, but all I could tell you is something doesn't add up with these texts. But I'm really excited to hear what you guys think in the comments. Let's try to keep it respectful. A lot of different theories going out, and I don't think anything is invalid or 100% for sure confirmed. So let's try to stay away from that certainty. But let me know in the comments what you think. Why do you think this text exchange reads as weird as it does? Do you think it's been fabricated, edited, or is it a real exchange between the two with some kind of motive? What do you make of his behavior in the courtroom and that stoicism when the charges are being read? What do you make of that lack of synchronicity between two news sources where we're seeing different reactions at different moments? That one just blew my mind. Let me know in the comments what you think of all this, and I will see you on the next one.